We've all been there, drawn to someone who seems confident and charismatic, only to find ourselves obsessing over them, even when they are clearly flawed or unhealthy. But what lies beneath this all-consuming fascination is a painful admission: many of us are so desperate to feel powerful and attractive that we'll chase anyone who makes us feel seen, no matter how toxic they are. I'm sure you've witnessed friends or loved ones exhibit the same behavior, perhaps even yourself. The frantic texts, the clingy behavior, the reckless sacrifices, all for a fleeting sense of validation from someone who ultimately doesn't care. In this video, we'll delve into the dark psychology behind this phenomenon, uncovering the unseen dance of insecurity that motivates people to use attraction as a band-aid for their own feelings of powerlessness. We present an external reality that makes us feel powerful, and that's often the facade of attraction, the pursuit of external validation to counteract the feelings of powerlessness that seep into every pore of our existence. You see, the reason we're drawn to others, the reason we crave their attention, is not because we're truly looking for a genuine connection, but because we're desperately trying to mask the void that exists within. We use other people's validation to give ourselves permission to exist, to feel worthy, to believe we're enough. A fragile ego propped up by the constant pursuit of external validation. Our obsession with attraction often stems from a deep-seated fear of being alone, of being unloved, of being unwanted, a primal fear that gnaws at the very core of our being. When we find someone who accepts us, we don't really let our guard down. We just put on a more convincing mask, because in reality, we're still trying to control the narrative of our own self-worth. Self-deception is the art of creating a life that looks perfect from the outside, while quietly sabotaging ourselves with patterns of behavior that keep us stuck in this endless dance of insecurity. Here are 6 insightful spoken sentences for the section: the power play, how manipulation and attraction are used as a means to assert control. People who struggle with feelings of powerlessness may employ a manipulative tactic known as the power play, where they use charm and attraction to lure others into a position of control. Behind the mask of seduction or affection, the true intention is often to alleviate one's own feelings of inadequacy and boost the ego through the validation of another. This self-deceptive behavior is rooted in the deep-seated fear that our worth and power are dependent on the approval and validation of others, rather than being sourced from within ourselves. Individuals who habitually use attraction as a means to exert control often have a distorted view of themselves and their place in the world, stemming from unresolved insecurities and unconscious fears. By convincing others to invest in them emotionally or romantically, they are able to momentarily escape the pain of their own powerlessness and momentarily regain a sense of agency and control. The most insidious aspect of this dynamic is that the person on the receiving end often feels responsible for the other's happiness and well-being, inadvertently becoming an enabler for their manipulative behavior. We often hide our true insecurities behind a mask of attraction, convincing ourselves that if we just land the perfect partner, all our problems will magically disappear. But the irony is, this desperate attempt to escape our own powerlessness through external validation is precisely what perpetuates our feelings of inadequacy, creating an endless cycle of craving. Deep down, we're not drawn to someone for who they are, but for what they represent: a sense of control over our own unfulfilled desires and a validation of our own perceived worth. In a misguided attempt to mask our own vulnerability, we attempt to control the people who are attracted to us, manipulating their emotions and actions to serve our own desperate needs for self-worth and validation. It's not the object of our desire that's causing the problem, but rather our own crippling fears of abandonment, rejection, and failure that lead us to prioritize short-term gratification over long-term growth and true fulfillment. When we find ourselves obsessing over someone, trying to grasp hold of them, it's often not because of a genuine connection, but because our own sense of self-worth is tied to their validation. In our desperate bids for control and security, we attempt to capture the affection of others as a way to mask our own feelings of powerlessness. We convince ourselves that it's because of them, their charm, their personality, but the truth is, we're often attracted to what they represent: a feeling of validation, a sense of belonging. It's a classic example of the ego trying to distract us from its own insecurities by creating an illusion of control, by trying to pin down someone else to soothe our own anxiety. What we're really after is a sense of safety from the fear that we may not be good enough. But this kind of attraction, this grasping for others as a means to cope with our own insecurities, is a surefire way to create more suffering and keep us stuck in a cycle of dependency. We're not learning to love and accept ourselves, but rather using others to mask our own powerlessness and lack of self-love. It's time to see through this illusion, to recognize that our value and worth aren't determined by our ability to attract or capture someone's affection. Our true empowerment begins when we can own our own powerlessness, when we can confront and accept our own vulnerabilities. By acknowledging our own insecurities and letting go of our need for control, we open ourselves up to the possibility of true connection, of real intimacy, of living a life that's not dependent on someone else's validation or approval. When we're drawn to someone, often it's a distraction from the void within ourselves, a way to momentarily silence the screams of our own powerlessness. But beneath the surface, that intense attraction can be a desperate attempt to fill the emptiness within, to validate our own existence by proving our appeal to another. It's a clever disguise for our deepest insecurities, a smoke and mirrors act where we convince ourselves that the solution lies in their love and acceptance, rather than addressing the root cause of our own self-doubt. Our attraction can be a coping mechanism, a way to momentarily escape the crushing weight of our own inadequacies, but ultimately, it's just a shallow band-aid on a festering wound. When we're trying to control someone's emotions or actions through attraction, we're often masking a deeper fear of feeling powerless or unworthy in our own lives. In these relationships, the ego is the puppeteer, manipulating the strings of attraction to feed its insatiable hunger for validation and control, all while the heart remains oblivious to the underlying dynamics driving its desires. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the intricate dance between attraction and powerlessness. Remember, the mask of insecurity can often hide the greatest strengths, and recognizing this pattern within ourselves is the first step towards true empowerment. Join the conversation by liking this video, sharing your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more in-depth dives into the complexities of the human psyche.